GoForThe2.com. These are our Week 11 predictions. We did not have any written breakdowns or weekly previews this week due to the aftermath of Hurricane Sandy. We had a loss of electricity in the tri-state area. We had a snowstorm last night. Knocked out a lot of power, so just bear with us. It'll be one more week, but we do have the predictions for Week 11 up on YouTube and up on the website, so check that out at GoForThe2.com. The Thursday night game, Florida State and Virginia Tech, that's the written prediction for that game is up on the website under the NCAA pick section. That's up right now, so check that out at GoForThe2.com. Friday night's game, Pittsburgh and UConn, that'll be up on the website under the NCAA pick section as well, a written prediction for that game Friday morning, so check that out. Let's get right into the Week 11 predictions right now. Let's start with Notre Dame traveling to Boston College. A lot of people eyeing the upset for Boston College, thinking that they can knock off the Irish. Not going to happen this week. Boston College is very undisciplined. They do not have the talent to compete with Notre Dame. Frank Spaziani is on his way out. I wrote about him at the start of the year saying that he was on the hot seat. He's on his way out in Chestnut Hill. Look for a dominating Notre Dame victory. They had their scare last week. They survived in triple overtime. Too much running game, too much offense and defensive line physicality for Notre Dame. They wear down Boston College. Look for Manti Te'o and the Irish defense to step up and confuse the offense for Boston College. They're very vanilla. Look for a dominating Notre Dame victory, 45-10, as they continue to go undefeated and possibly eye a national title game come January. So keep an eye out for that for Notre Dame. They get a dominating victory, 45-10 over Boston College. Colin Klein, he's expected to play. A lot of people said that Kansas State would be knocked off should Colin Klein not play. Well, Colin Klein is expected to play. Bill Schneider did say that he will start this week. A lot of rumors swirling about the injury suffered last week against Oklahoma State. I like TCU in this game with Colin Klein. TCU, I wasn't sold on them last week. I thought they would lose on the road to West Virginia. They stepped up and got a 39-38 victory. Over the last 4 weeks, they've been tested by spread offenses, which is a pass-heavy first. You look at Baylor, Oklahoma State, West Virginia, and Texas Tech are all pass-first offenses. Now Bill Schneider and the K-State Wildcats come to town with Colin Klein. Yes, they are effective throwing the football, but they're a run-first type of offense led by Klein and Jonathan Hubert. I expect TCU to be in this game defensively. I look for Boykin and the offense to move the ball effectively on Kansas State, and I'm looking for the upset in TCU. They get an upset victory over Colin Klein and Kansas State, 31-28 at home, and knock out the Wildcats from the number 2 ranking. I know a lot of people don't think this is going to happen because Colin Klein's starting. I like Colin Klein to start in this game. I'm looking for the upset. TCU gets it 31-28 over Kansas State. How about a team that sort of starting to come along in a little bit? I'll tell you why. Well, according to their opponent this week, Tennessee's playing Missouri. Missouri very effective a couple of weeks ago. They beat up on a much maligned Kentucky team and head coach Joker Phillips, who's on his way out. They got the victory dominating at home. They came back last week and traveled to Florida. A lot of people didn't give them a chance on the road. They hung in there against the Gators after the Gators lost to Georgia. A very lackluster effort for the Gators. They picked up a 14-7 victory at home over Missouri. Now Missouri travels on the road to Tennessee, which hasn't won an SEC game. They're 0-5 in the SEC. Derek Dooley's probably on his way out, but when you look at the Tennessee Volunteers over the last couple of weeks, they've started to get the offense going with the passing game. Tyler Bray, a couple of weeks ago, almost pulled off the upset in Columbia, South Carolina. They lost 38-35, but they were in the game most of the way due to the offense coming along with Hunter and Patterson in the passing game. Bray picked apart the Gamecock defense, and they almost got the victory on the road, 38-35. Last week against Troy, they were in a barn burner. They put up 500 yards of passing on Troy, but it was nip and tuck most of the way. They fell behind early, and then they had to battle back to get the victory, 55-48. However, when you look at this game right now, I like Tennessee. I like Tyler Bray in this game against the Missouri Tiger defense. Missouri is going to start James Franklin back at quarterback. It's going to take him. He's been out a couple of weeks, at least 3 weeks, due to a shoulder injury. It's going to take him a couple of weeks to get back into midseason form. I like Tennessee at home in this game. They pick up their first SEC victory. I think Bray and the offense continue to roll. I like Tennessee in this ball game. I think they pick up a 34-17 victory at home over Missouri. Let's talk about another team right now. Army traveling to New Brunswick to take on Rutgers. For years, if you've lived on the East Coast, Rutgers has beaten up on Army the last few years. They've blown them out. Rutgers defense, very solid against the pass, very solid against the run. But this is a different Army team. Trent Steelman and the option is going to pose some problems for Rutgers and the Scarlet Knights in this ball game. I like Army in this game to keep it close. I think Rutgers gets the victory, but I think it's a lot closer than people think. I think Rutgers gets a 20-17 victory over Army. I like Army and the Scarlet Knights to keep it close. This is sort of a rivalry. It's an East Coast type of affair. Army plays everybody tough. I like Army in this ball game to keep it close against Rutgers. Georgia Tech and North Carolina. When you looked at this game last year, Georgia Tech wore down the North Carolina defense. I know it's a different coaching staff with Larry Fedora. North Carolina seems to get things going the last couple of weeks with Bryn Renner and Giovanni Bernard, but I like Georgia Tech in this game with the triple option. I think that they upset North Carolina on the road. I'm calling for a 31-24 victory by the Yellow Jackets and head coach Paul Johnson. Look for Tevin Washington to have a big game. I like the offense and the defense for Georgia Tech to pull off the upset, 31-24 over North Carolina. How about this team, USC? Everybody thought they can get the upset last week against Oregon. Not a lot of people thought that Oregon was ready to play at USC. Well, they showed everybody. Kenyon Barner, Mariota picked apart the USC defense. Matt Barkley, Marquise Lee, and Robert Woods did have a very good game. The offense was intact. They put up a bunch of points, but they still lost the game by 11 points and gave up 61 points to Oregon last week. They have back-to-back home games now. Arizona State comes to town. Not a lot of people think highly of Arizona State this year. They're a mediocre team. I've been impressed with Todd Graham, Taylor Kelly, a very good quarterback, Cameron Marshall, a very underrated running back. But when you remember this ball game last year in the desert, Arizona State wore down the defense of USC. They ran all over them. I'm looking for back-to-back losses by USC this week. I think Arizona State pulls off the victory. I think they get a 34-26 victory over USC. I'm not sold on USC. I said that they're on their way to mediocrity under Lane Kiffin. I think he's the most overrated coach in 1A. He's done less with more talent than any other coach in 1A history in my mind. He's the most overrated coach, and he's shown it. His team is lacking discipline, turnovers, penalties. It continues this week against a very disciplined Arizona State team. Arizona State, they lost last week to Oregon State, but they've been playing more disciplined. They play a physical style of defense, and Todd Graham slowly has his players buying into his system. I like the offense of Arizona State to wear down USC at home, and they pick up the victory on the road to give the Trojans back-to-back home losses. So keep an eye out for that. Mississippi State traveling to LSU. LSU, when they lost that game, they were up 17-14. To lose that type of game to Alabama has to be disheartening. Now Mississippi State comes to town. They've owned Mississippi State over the last 10 years. Mississippi State hasn't even been able to compete with LSU. It's been a lack of offense, lack of firepower. LSU is dominated on the defensive side of the ball, but loss last week in Baton Rouge under the lights to the #1 team in the country in the last minute has to take the wind out of the sails. I know the game's at night. I know it's under the lights in Baton Rouge in Death Valley. I think LSU wins, but I think LSU wins a very close game. I look for Ladarius Perkins